We have around 19,000 colleagues in the world, and we have a milk intake of around 14 billion kilos of milk every year. We are also the largest producer of organic dairy products. And it's not because you need to know anything in detail about us, but it was just to let you know what kind of company we are. And if we quickly go to the next slide, it says something about our presence in the world. We are basically represented throughout the world, the majority obviously in Europe, as you see, but we also have quite a large presence in Western Africa, in the Middle East region, in Asia, and also in the States, even in Brazil. And in some of these areas, we see more inequality perhaps than we do in our own Nordic region. So I just want to share with you a little bit on the next slide what our sustainability strategy is, and then I will dip a little bit deeper into what I'm going to talk about today for the Women's Empowerment Principle. Last year we actually did a sustainability strategy, and we decided to focus on two pillars. One of them is the Stronger Planet, where we take a lot of action to try to minimize our environmental footprint. And the other one is the Stronger People part, where we really try to enhance our positive handprint. And you could wonder why there is no SDG 5 over there that goes for gender equality, but it's actually because we have put it in the foundation, and it's the basis for our work. Both of the strategic pillars are actually founded in our code of conduct and our usual ways of working. And we find all of the SDGs down there, including SDG 5. And when I mention that, it's because and I'm sorry, but we do not talk that much about women's empowerment principles anymore, and maybe we should. But I think what we are trying to do now when we talk about this is actually to use the SDGs as a more common communication, at least with a lot of our both internal and external stakeholders. This is more known, so I'm sorry if I'm doing something a little bit out of scope here, but that's basically how it is for us. If we move on to the next one, I just want to say that when I was asked to do this presentation, I started thinking exactly about this, and I thought, well, am I the right one to talk about these empowerment principles? Because we don't talk a lot about them in our daily work. But then I started thinking more about what is it actually that we do, and maybe it actually works very well with the principles that we signed up to anyway. So I looked into Women's Empowerment Principle number 2, and I looked into what the suggested actions actually were, and where we would potentially be good at following up, or where we have the challenges still, and what our current activities are. And I think that is the basis for my presentation today. So if we look at the principles here, and just as you presented, it's about making sure that the remuneration is equal. It's about making sure that we have an inclusive workplace for all. It's about implementing recruitment that is gender sensitive, and having flexible work arrangement, and making sure that both men and women have a possibility to take leave. And on the next slide, I thought I would highlight what we have actually put in place over the last 10, 12 years. We had our first code of conduct in 2008. At least we had the first draft. And then in 2010, we signed up to these women empowerment principles. And we've been refining the work ever since. Our latest code of conduct is now 5 years old, and it's probably up for a revision very soon. But the foundation for our work is still in there. Since then, we have actually worked quite a lot on trying to create a more equal and fair workplace for both men and women. We have a specific human rights policy. We have a recruitment policy wherein it's stated that you should provide equal opportunities for the applicants. We look at making sure to have a short list of both men and women, and we're also looking into other diversity elements such as age and nationality and so on. We have a remuneration policy where we look at the performance and make sure that it's it's the remuneration is based on that. And as you said, we have to look into the data. So we actually do a follow-up every year, not on all markets. That is where we actually still have work to do. But we've started out in the European countries where we have by far the most colleagues. And the ratio between men and women is getting much better, and we're quite close in most of the countries. It was not when we started, so having data in place to actually take a look at whether the remuneration is fair and equally distributed is good. Then we have a discrimination and harassment policy, which is very focused on also sexual harassment and trying to have a better what can you say? How is the good workplace, and try to talk about what kind of workplace do we want and what is it that we don't want. And then we have a diversity policy where we have set out rules for the team's composition. And that one we are not there yet, but we have decided that the team should consist of not more than, well, at least 30% should have be the minority gender, for instance, or you should look at nationality and age groups and so on. So that one is difficult. We follow up on that one actually, but it's tricky for us because not all teams are big, and sometimes it's just difficult for us to make sure that this is possible. And then I highlighted the parental leave policy, and I did that because it is new from this year, and it's not a maternity leave. It's actually a shared parental policy that we did. And it is because even though we say that we are quite equal, even in the Nordic and Scandinavian countries, we see that maybe we're not that equal when it comes to taking parental leave. So we want to try to encourage a little bit more that also the secondary caregiver takes some time off here. Then we also have some community initiatives in place, and we do actually, especially in our emerging markets, we do gender impact assessments to figure out where can we have the biggest positive impact with what we do. And then I thought I just wanted to share some examples with you on what we do from around the world. So if we go to the next slide. We started in 2019 a big project in Bangladesh where we aim to have empowered 5,000 women to generate their own income by 2022. And the idea with this is both to help empower these women to generate an income, and it's also for us to have a better sales channel out to the rural population in Bangladesh with so it's sort of a social project, but of course with a strategic angle to it as well. We have recruited this female sales force, and then they are being trained in nutrition and hygiene and yeah, well, basically how to feed your family and so on. And then they go door to door selling these products. We want to reach 5,000, but it has been difficult this year, and the project is at a standstill right now due to the severe lockdowns. So when you were talking about that violence, for instance, is growing when there's a lockdown, there's also the problem with initiatives like this. It's not that they are completely locked down, but they are at a standstill. So it doesn't go as quickly as we would like to. But still, we continue and we try to innovate new ways for them to keep working. But it's, of course, COVID-19 has played a huge role in our implementation of this project. I think I will go fairly quickly through my slides, and then we can discuss afterwards, or you can ask questions. It's difficult for me to see if there's any questions while I speak here, so I think I'll just continue. Another of the examples that we have, if you move on to the next slide, is from something we did in Nigeria, also in 2019. I have to say that the initiatives this year have been few. We have made a few workshops in Nigeria. The first intention was actually to do a workshop with our partners in Nigeria around responsible business conduct. But it turned out that a lot of the discussion was actually about gender equality and making sure that women were also empowered there. And that was actually based on one of these gender impact assessments we did in advance of the workshop. So the outcome of this was actually that we did a gender equality plan, or a plan to promote gender equality in the project, and we also succeeded in making an agreement with our partners down there on how to distribute the income that our project generates in Nigeria. There was also a specific focus on hiring women into some of the job functions down there. We started out, and it turned out that none really applied for it, and we couldn't really understand why. And we sort of had a discussion with our partners why the women wouldn't apply for working in our milking parlors and so on in Nigeria. And it turned out that it was because they were simply afraid of their physical safety, because it meant that they would have to leave home and walk for a while or leave at night and something like that. So we set up actually specific safety measures and staff to make sure that they come to and from work in a safe manner. Then we have also, as you could see from the map, we have quite a big presence in Saudi Arabia, and we have a long time commitment to work with women down there and to employ women. It started out with us having specific departments, both in offices and in production, that were only female allowed. It's still like that in the production, but even Saudi Arabia is actually now opening up a little bit, and we have open floor offices for our administration personnel, so men and women are working together. That is quite a big step also for some of our colleagues down there, but they seem to be very happy. I was there a couple of years ago. I haven't seen the new setup, but they seem to be very happy with it. So all in all, I think we are doing a lot here in this area. But then if you move on to the next slide, I also just want to highlight that we still have challenges, even if we think that we're doing fairly well. So the challenge, I think, is right now maybe to keep the focus, in particular here in Europe, where still a lot of the decisions are taken, because this is where we have our head office. I think to a far extent, or to a wide extent, there is this consensus that we do have gender equality, but you could ask whether that is correct. And I just took the numbers from last year's annual report, and we do have quite, we almost have the same or 50-50 split between 50-50 split, and there's sadly to say not a very swift development either. So that is something that we really have to continue focusing on, and also challenge internally in the business. So even if we have policies in place, and even if we work with them and we highlight this on a continuous basis, it's sometimes difficult, and it takes a while to actually succeed with it. And I think that my last slide I was just going to say, what is our current efforts and focus here in this? And it is actually, right now, we have a focus on harassment, and we want to run a campaign on this in the beginning of the new year. We do an annual survey for all colleagues around the world, where we ask them about their jobs and satisfaction and engagement and so on. And one of the questions is about harassment. And it actually shows that there is still some issues with harassment around, and some of it is related also to sexual harassment. So we have been following up on this. We just had the results back in end of this year, and we are running a campaign in the beginning of the new year, really focusing on harassment, and we're working together with our works councils and the unions, and we have a special collaboration with an international union as well, to sort of help us with the international markets where we do not have the same tradition as we do in Europe. And at the same time, we are launching an improved grievance mechanism also in, I guess, end of January next year, because we want to be better at seeing these trends and act on them in advance. And then, of course, our current efforts and our continued focus will be to continue the partnerships where we empower both men and women, but especially women in this case, around the world. And that could be the Pushti ambassadors in Bangladesh, or the farmers and workers in Nigeria, dairy workers in Nigeria. So that was a little bit about us, what we do, what our challenges are, and what our current efforts are. So I think I will open the floor for any questions or comments. I know this was quick, but yeah, I hope it made a little bit of sense.
Thank you so much, Susanne. Actually, what we have thought, and I can see already there's a lot of curious participants in the asking questions in the chat box. So what we thought was that we take the second presentation from Tele2 first, and then we hopefully will have some time to actually go into a smaller room where there's a little bit more intimate to ask those questions. And those that are interested in Arla Foods will go in one group. And actually, I will assign a little bit random, because I think we'll be curious about two. So we will now ask Therese Torstensson from Tele2 to make the second presentation, and then we'll break up in groups.
Thank you, Anna. Great. And welcome everyone to this short presentation, 15 minutes, about the work we have done at Tele2 around diversity and inclusion and the UN Empowerment Principle #2. So we can move to the first slide, Anna. Maybe I have some lag, actually. I experienced that when Susan was speaking as well. So now I can see too. Perfect. So I just wanted as well to shortly introduce you to Tele2. So Tele2 is a telecom communication firm operating in Sweden, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, so not such a global scope as Arla. We was founded in 1993 by Jan Stenbeck, that you can see a picture of in the upper right corner. He was at that time one of Sweden's most famous entrepreneurs. And our company today has a mission to fearlessly liberate people to live a more connected life. And our brands are Tele2, Comviq, Comhem, Boxer, and Penny. And all since Jan founded Tele2, we have had a history of being a true challenger, a company that dare to think differently and try new things without being too afraid of failure. We are an open company that wants our employees to have opposing views and openly share their different perspectives. And this cultural heritage have, of course, also had an impact on the strategies and plans that we have chosen for diversity and inclusion. So we can go to the next slide. So our work on diversity and inclusion was intensified in the beginning of 2000, Swedish company called Comhem. And we realized that the new leadership team would consist of 13 men and 1 woman, my boss, Karin Svensson. And this was, of course, a situation that we were not very happy with. And that created a very good and heated debate, both internally, but also externally in the media. And everyone was asking themselves, how could this happen year 2019? And then we decided that we truly need to do something about this unbalance to ensure that the future definitely will look different. And in true Tele2 spirit, we also wanted to do things that would have an impact quite quickly. So we started off by analyzing our current situation. So we looked at the gender balance over time in our company at different levels, but also in different business units. And we realized that not a lot had changed over the last 5 years. We have been around 32, 31, 32% females up and down the last 5 years, but probably most likely further down in history as well. We also looked then at the inflow of female talents to Tele2 as well as the outflow, realizing that, of course, that's the 2 most important parameters that you have to play with, the inflow and the outflow, to be able to visibly impact the balances. And we also looked at data such as turnover, pay gap, parental leave, sick leaves, and also our inclusion scores and engagement scores per gender. And we can go to the next slide. And based on this data, we decided to formulate the above mission or target for Tele2. And it sounds the following: build an inclusive environment where diverse talent can perform at their best, and at the same time, a gender balanced workforce with 50% women and 50% men by 2023. So as you can see, quite a challenging deadline for us. Well, maybe not, I shouldn't say deadline, but timeline at least. And if we can click one more, Anna, exactly, we come to this more, because we also broken down then this target on a leadership level, manager level, and employee level. We can go to next slide. So what does then diversity inclusion mean to us at Tele2? So we decided that we want to have a focus on gender, but because we believe a focus gives us bigger chances to actually make a real difference in the work we do. But at the same time, realizing that diversity and inclusion goes so much broader than gender. It includes all what is above the iceberg, which we say is what is visible to the naked eye, such as skin color, age, and gender. But it also includes all what is below the iceberg, such as values, attitudes, personalities, experiences, etc. And then for us, diversity and inclusion means that we should embrace workforce diversity. So that's all our differences as illustrated with the iceberg. We also value diverse perspectives, meaning that we believe in the power of diverse perspectives and mindset. That should be part of our DNA, that we want to get challenged and that we appreciate to be getting challenged back. We also mean that we should have an open climate where everyone dare to speak their minds and make their voice heard. We also want to have a climate that is characterized by inclusion and collaboration, where we act and feel as one strong winning team, where everyone truly feels included and to participate. And we also, last but not least, want all our employees to feel that they are treated with respect and dignity, having zero tolerance for harassments of any kind. So for us, it is a very broad definition and work we do, even if we decided that we need to focus to make a true difference. We can go to the next, Anna, perfect. So to reach our goals, we put a plan together that focus on two areas: recruitment and retention/culture. And in 2019, our focus was very much on creating a more inclusive recruitment process that would also create a more diverse outcome. And during now 2020, we have focused on retention and culture. And I will now, on the next slide, tell you a few sort of examples of activities that we have done under these two pillars. So starting with the recruitment leg and employer branding, we have worked to make our employer brand more attractive to a more diverse candidate pool over the year. So we have done this by reviewing the way we express ourselves through pictures and through the language we use in our job ads. And we have realized that before we used very much a marketing language which was based on skateboard players, it was based on racer car drivers, all illustrating very much a winning attitude with sort of individualism. And we understood that this is actually nothing that makes our company super attractive to a more diverse population and not to women. So we have broadened this picture language instead. And now we focus on collaboration, pictures that illustrates collaboration, support, development. Just as a few examples. Number two here on the recruitment leg is that we have also started to work more with what we call people planning. This is, we do quarterly with the business heads to discuss the business plans for the future, i.e. what are the competencies that are going to be important, what are the areas where we're going to grow, and what competencies will then be required and how many. And with this information, it gives us so many more opportunities to act as part of the recruitment team more proactively and truly make long-term plans for more diverse hires. And this makes a super big difference compared to thinking short-term and just acting on when the demand is there, to coming in with a much more longer-term perspective, being ahead of the demands and hence being able to start pipelining early on. And then the last on the recruitment leg is the one around our recruitment principles, which is probably what has made the biggest difference to us, is that we, in the 2019, implemented 2 super important recruitment principles. The first one sounds like we will always hire the best. And the second one says that we should hire 2 women for every man to teams that today have gender imbalances. This means that all our recruiting managers are committed from the beginning to search and focus on finding more female talents. This created a lot of debate internally when we launched this principle at first, but now it's actually running with a lot of support internally. And I will show you our numbers on how successful this has been also very soon. And just to mention a few things that we have done to retain our talents as well, which is our second leg. Firstly, we are just currently rolling out 2 training programs or workshops. One is called Rewire for Inclusion and is focusing on creating a bigger awareness around what is diversity and inclusion, why is it important, and what is holding us back, so our unconscious biases. Another training program that we are launching is one around jargons, because we have noticed after doing an in-depth analysis on our current state in the organization, together with an external company, that we have some challenges in terms of the jargons being used in certain part of the organization. So that's why we developed this workshop, focusing on what jargons are okay, what jargons are not okay, what can we do if we are faced with jargons that we actually do not appreciate. And then we've also rolled out what we call our people promise, and that is really there to describe what our company stands for in terms of what our employees can expect from us and what we expect back from our employees. And this clarity helps our employees to understand what type of an employer we aspire to be. And then my last example here on retention, even if we have many, many more, is the collaborations with the NGOs that I think is important. With Reach for Change, Tjejer Kodar, Women in Tech, all just to make sure that the work we do also have a bigger impact in the society that we operate in. See if I go to the last slide, Anna. Or someone. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So just want to show you some results so far. We have some results that we are proud of, even if we always wish change was coming through even quicker. And we have gone from recruiting 30% women 2018 to recruiting 62% women 2019, and now we are trending towards 56% women 2020. So that's a big difference from the 30 that we historically used to recruit. We have also improved our inclusion scores. That is what you see to the right here. We measure inclusion as part of our engagement survey that we run quarterly. And this is super important for us because it's the other leg of diversity is to create an inclusion workplace. And the 2 questions that we are asking is, our team has a climate in which diverse perspectives are valued, and also the one, I'm treated with respect and dignity. And as you can see, we are going in the right direction, and I'm very openly here sharing our results. we are proud that we're going in the right direction, but wish, of course, to take a few more steps in the next survey coming up in January. And then finally, we have our EquiLeap survey. We got the #1 position among the OMEX 30 companies in Sweden during 2020. So that's, of course, something that we are very, very proud of. And I hope we can keep that result also for 2021. So that was all from Tele2, a very short version.
Thank you so much, Therese. And I think thanks to both companies for excellent presentations. I really like the iceberg. I think it's a good visual for showing diversity and diversity in all its aspects. Also back to Susanna's presentation on the SDGs versus the Women's Empowerment Principles. Just to clarify that the SDGs is that global framework for governments and private sector, civil society that we're all aiming at. Whereas we use the Women's Empowerment Principles to really guide the implementation of SDG 5 along with the other ones to give the more details to it. So there's no right or wrong here. We are using both platforms and we really want to see them seamlessly together. And really using the Women's Empowerment Principle as the framework to guide action under SDG 5, which is quite broad otherwise. We're now moving into, and apologies, but I've just randomly selected you. Basically everyone with A, go to the Arla. So I have assigned people to a quick chat. So we have about, I think, 10 minutes to ask questions to Susanna and Therese, and then we'll come back. I will call you back in a few minutes to the hour. So enjoy the conversations with the two case study holders.
That worked well.
Hello.
Hello. That was
Hi, Adriana here from Canada.
So, I'm not suggesting that you necessarily have a lot of questions for me. So I'm thinking we could just either you can ask questions if you have them, or we could just have a discussion, a chat or something. I'm also quite interested in learning how you are working with the principles in your organizations. Anyone?
Hi, this is Lisa from the UN Women Nordic Liaison Office. I'm part of one of the hosts for this meeting. I just wanted to give you the starting question, and then I will jump to the other breakout room. So one thing you can think about is if the two presentations have inspired you to work with the principles in a different way, or if you have, through the presentations, identified
Into this.
Sorry, I'm trying to see.
Hello again.
We're back, I think.
Yeah, something happened. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
No apologies, everyone.
We're back.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we're back.
Yes. So it would just be an open discussion. If there maybe has been some inspiration for you that you would like to share, that you see the work happening going forward in your own company, or if you have thoughts or questions for Arla, please feel free to share. I will pop these questions in the chat as well. Let's see.
Are we, Adriana here, are we answering that question on parental leave, Lisa?
Do you want me to share something about how we implement? Is that the question? Oh, now I'll be returned to the, I don't want that. Something happened. What should
We're
I?
getting returned to the.
I think we all returned back to the
main room again.
Yeah. So
hi everyone. It seems like we have lost Anna, the host. Maybe her internet connection is unstable, but let's do this discussion together. We all know how it is with Zoom. Sometimes Wi-Fi works, sometimes it doesn't. So if you have questions for Arla and Tele2, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask them. And I hope we can have an engaging discussion.
Do you want to reformulate your question again that you had?
Yes, I can do that, Teresa. My question was around the recruitment, you know, having the two principles, as you said, hiring the best for the position and yet having a focus on hiring more female in places where there was imbalance, and how that was perceived, because often you would say hire the best for the position. If that's a man, then hire that one, and how, you know, just experience and out of the resistance or some comments or reflections from the organization would be interesting.
No, there were absolutely quite a lot of resistance, people saying that that's going to be impossible. If that was possible, we would have done it for years ago. And the reasons why we're hiring 30/70 is because there are no women that have the competence needed to take more jobs at Tele2 than the 30% that we've already been hiring. So that was absolutely the going in point. But here again, data and statistics helps a lot. Try to figure out sort of what your chances are to find sort of the balances in the market for the roles that you're actually recruiting for. That's good ammunition to have. In our company, some said, okay, but we are recruiting mainly to tech roles. That's why it's so difficult. But then we analyzed that data as well and saw, no, we actually mainly recruiting to sales roles. So that is an argument that doesn't work either. Then we started to look at data for the funnel. So how many actually apply to us? Is it that not enough women apply to us? And that's why we end up with the application process was much better than the end result. So something happened on the way. So use the data to try to build up your arguments that is right for your company, and then work long term. And another one, always try to present a short list that is diverse. That is the key to success. Never try to move too fast in the process and go in with with sort of an unbalanced, of course, lead to an unbalanced decision in the end as well. So try to have the shortlist always balanced, at least 50-50.
Thank you.
So, but a lot of heated debate.
Yeah, apologies for the technology. It insisted that we be in one group. So apologies for that. Just to make sure, not to make one more attempt, I just want to make sure that both Susanne and Therese gets equal amount of time to respond to questions. So maybe I really apologize for this. I think there is a function that if you could raise your hand and in the on your profile, and then we'll call one by one for the Q&A. Apologies for this technical challenge.
I don't know how to raise my hand, Anna.
Okay, so maybe, okay, Adriana.
Hi,
great.
I just wanted to share because it occurred to me, Lisa was asking an interesting question for all of us, so it'd be great to hear more about this, about parental leave strategies. I see that Suzanne, there was a bit of a discussion about that. One thing I'll share, and it would be great to hear more from companies, is that in Canada, I've worked with some tech companies, and one of the big challenges for us was not so much the policies, but the implementation of it on a day-to-day basis in terms of conversations around parental leave, at least for us. So we ended up creating some job aids to help managers and HR guide these discussions to normalize the kind of stickiness that happens, at least on our end, with talking proactively about leave before, during, and after. So we created these kind of aids to aid in the discussion, which seemed to have some very interesting results in terms of normalizing the discussions, and actually brought about what we saw, an increase in men taking paternity leave, because there was a normalization of these conversations and both parties were less nervous. So it was just something I threw out there in terms of like beyond the policy, how it's implemented day to day. And it would be great to hear if there's any other experiences like that with companies that have spoken.
Yeah, I think what we have heard, and I will ask you, Susanne, to join, what we've heard across the board is the question matters. If as an supervisor, you know, an employee is having a child, is not to ask, are you going to take paternity leave, but when are you going to take your paternity leave? That how you ask the question really matters on how the employee feels about it. But Susanne.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that was actually also one of the things that we wanted to highlight with this policy, even though we are based here where it's quite usual that their dads take their leave as well. It still was a little bit are you instead of when. So we wanted to actually have that whole discussion about when are you leaving, and we actually also wanted to add the possibility for everyone. Of course, there's always the possibility, but we wanted to make sure that it didn't depend basically on the relationship with the individual manager or anything, that you can all be given this time off with pay, and then you can, without further discussions, really ask for this time out if you want to pay yourself. So we wanted to have a more sort of open discussions around that, and more open and more flexible way of, if you in your family have organized it in a way that you are able to take more time off, or you want to take more time off, that's fine. We're not going to interfere with that. So that was basically it. In our region, we have, as I said, the policy is new as of this year. Our organizations have 1.5 years to implement, so we're not there yet. We've had quite a bit of discussion in the UK because they had a different way of looking at it, and we weren't really expecting that. So that was interesting. And then, of course, the whole Middle East region came back to us and said, well, that's fine. And what do you think in terms of how many children is the secondary caregiver allowed to stay home with? And I was thinking, oh yeah, well, but we haven't really put a max on that. But we were looking into the statistics of childbirth in different countries. So we gave it a shot, and then the HR came back and said, yeah, one of our colleagues has 4 wives. Can he stay at home with 4 times 5 children? Or so we won't, I mean, so basically discussions that we hadn't really prepared that well, and I have to admit that, but we found a way, and I guess also doing this was more of a stand for us, and then we would have to figure something out as we go along, because we haven't had a parental leave policy before. So it's also about staying open, staying in dialogue with our organization.
Susanne, can I ask you a question?
I think you can.
My name is Peter. I'm working for Louis Poulsen.
Mm-hmm.
We are a quite small company, and I've been asked to look into diversity next year. Mm-hmm. We have been working with sustainability for a couple of years. And my question is in regards to hiring or proactively hiring females. You know, let's say that, you know, if you're a small company and you have started a search process, and you have 2 candidates, and one is a male, another one is a female. You have an underrepresentation of females in the group where you are going to make the recruitment. And then if you then, you know, deliberately, let's say that the male is the most skilled for the job, but you deliberately select the female due to diversity reasons. What is your experience in regards to how the organization would perceive the new employee if the new employee have been selected due to diversity, compared to whether the new employee have been selected due to competences?
I don't think there are various ways of looking at this. I would say that you could probably, I mean, if you end up with 2 good candidates, they're probably good. Then you could take a close look at why would you think that the male is more competent. What is your bias in that respect? Is that because the hiring manager likes him? Or, I mean, there are so many ways at looking at this. I think it's quite complex, and I think that sometimes the reasons and the attributes that we put into more competent could be revisited without harm. And then I would say we don't have quotas, so I think you should go for the best candidate. But I also think that maybe you should reconsider what the best candidate is sometimes. Yeah. And if you're going, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No. I think that sums it up.
Yeah.
No, I was about to say the same thing. But Therese, you've had some experience also with your
2+1 principle. Yeah, exactly. I think that's absolutely a common question from our employees as well. And I think what Susanne said around revisit what competence actually stands for and what you actually need for the role. There will always be gives and take. There will never be a perfect candidate. So it's just for you to decide on what will be most important to be successful in that role. And it is that important to agree both upfront, but also when you have the final candidates, again, revisit that this is absolutely what will be the most important for that position. And also, I think if you have done a search and you have 2 candidates, you can always say, okay, we need to go back and do another search if you're not happy with how the end results actually turns out. Yeah. And I think that's an option we're not using often enough, actually.
And to provoke everyone a little bit, including myself, sometimes we tend to believe that the best candidate is what we're used to.
Yeah,
so
thank you,
maybe
Susanne. I think this is a great response. It is revisiting the criteria for which we are evaluating successful candidates. We are at the top of the hour. I feel like a party pooper because I think the discussion here is going really, really well. And maybe we can, I see that some people are dropping off because they had a hard stop. But if there is much, and maybe the person who would like to ask the question, just unmute. Seems like the raising hand function hasn't worked.
If it's okay.
Yes, Joanna.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for fantastic presentations and great input. Very inspiring. But I really wanted to go back to this question that Peter actually kind of scratched the surface of. It's about the policy that Tele2 has 1+2 or 2+1, because it is feels a little bit like a quota system. And I don't know if that is helping the gender battle or is it counterproductive? So I would like to
No, I think it is. I think it's a fair question, and it's quite provocative principle. I do agree with you, Joanna, but it gives results, and we haven't lowered the competence that we are hiring because we're also measuring how happy the managers are with our recruitment process and with the persons that we recruit, and we can actually see that has increased, not decreased. And there are also so many external studies saying that even if we would go further than we are doing to implement a quota system, it is actually that the competence will increase because the barriers for entry into a company will increase because you will be so much more careful with every recruitment decision you take to make it 100% correct. And we can see that we have implemented so much more thorough processes with many more assessment steps just to be truly 100% sure that the candidates will be the right ones. But at the same time, we believe we can get more females in, which we have also managed to do. So it's provocative, but I think that is what has been needed for us to turn this around, go from 70% men to 70% inflow. It has been the key for us to be successful, actually. And nowadays, after 1 year, it is much less probable than it's the beginning.
Fantastic, thank you. No, I absolutely agree with you. I was really impressed with the results you were achieving in the company. What I was just thinking that the principle itself is more like quota-based. That I always am very sensitive about because it can bring really bad results. I mean, here obviously the results are amazing, but the principle is.
I completely understand you, Joanna, and I'm challenging myself as well very often with the principles we put in place. We try them, we change them if they are not working, but to be honest, this one has worked really well. It has served its purpose.
Thank you, congratulations.
Thank you.
one final question that we have in the comment box, if we can tackle that one. And for everyone, we will share the recordings afterwards. And of course, joining the Women's Empowerment Principles community also gives you an opportunity to continue these conversations. The question is if you had any experience with blind recruitment. So removing data about gender, age, name, etc. on the resume. Personally, what we've heard from many companies is that there's still a lot of bias around from what universities people have studied and the previous experience. So I think removing bias completely. But let's hear from Therese and Susanne.
No, we haven't done that, but what we have done is that we do the assessment of cognitive skills and personality assessment super early on in the process instead of in the final step of the process. And that means that we don't have the names included when we review the assessment results. And we do that for most of our candidates replying. So in that step, yes, but not through the whole process. No, not yet. But I'm very curious to try that as well.
I can say that the same as you do. We have the tests fairly early on, and we have not removed names and gender and so on. There has been decided against it because, just as you said, there are so many other biases. So it's really difficult to figure out what to remove, and we haven't done it. Nope.
Thank you. And thank you so much, everyone. It's been so exciting conversation, and I'm very sorry to cut it short, but we'll continue next year with additional webinars and discussions. So welcome to those. We'll announce it, and of course to this group, we'll share the recording. So for those that haven't yet joined the Women's Empowerment Principle, please do so. It's on www.weps.org. Thank you very much, everyone, and enjoy your rest of the week.
Thank you, everyone.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Happy
Bye.
holidays.
Bye. Happy holidays. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Jeg vil sige, Rikard, det var godt, du ikke havde fat i min gamle bygger